All right, I will now call to order the Monday, August 15th, 2022 regular town council meeting. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up first is the approval of the memorandum of the August 1st, 2022 regular town council meeting. A copy has been posted. Are there any questions from councilors?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. By Councilor Garrett, second by Councilor Trailer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. I'm sorry, Melton, not Trailer. I apologize for that. Up next would be the approval of claims. Are there any questions on claims?
No, one comment. I really appreciated the added detail for what the claim was for. That was very helpful.
Yeah, I was going to say the claims look really, really good. Thank you for that. I'll make a motion to approve claims.
Second.
Second by Councilor Trailer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Moving along is request to speak. Amy, do we have a request to speak?
No, we do not.
Okay. Up next would be the mayor administration update. Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I want to start off this morning by saying how much I appreciate the community of Zionsville and the employees here in the town of Zionsville and for how hard they work every day on behalf of this community. I was pretty appalled at some of the rhetoric and comments made about one of our department heads at a recent town council meeting. And I just want to say that the Parks Department is a small but incredibly mighty group of individuals. And Jared Logston is a fantastic Parks Director. We are so lucky that he serves this community in the way that he does, and that he has brought in so many fantastic ideas, grants, employees, and initiatives. Winterfest, I don't know, maybe did anybody here in this room attend any of the Winterfest activities? Show of hands, couple? Yeah, so several more coming up. It was fantastic. It was the kind of thing that when I ran for mayor, we talked about doing. We talked about having recreation programs, not just nature spots where we can enjoy the peacefulness of our parks, but also the active opportunities for families of all ages and all abilities. And that's what I see our Parks Department doing and leaning into every day. And I'm so incredibly proud of their work and proud of their efforts and proud of their successes. I realize that we are living in a community and in a state and in a country and perhaps even a world where it makes a lot of sense to start hurling accusations at politicians and at public employees as if they're automatons, folks that have no feelings or have no real pride in the work that they're doing. But that's not the case in this small but fabulous little town. The employees that work for this community are so invested in community development and invested in taking the responsibility and the opportunities that they have to make this community realize its fullest potential. There's there was never a moment when Zionsville was going to stand still and freeze frame in some sort of idealistic best of Zionsville kind of time. The best of Zionsville is meeting the desires and the needs and the wants of the current population, the current community. It's growing. It's not staying still. That's how we lost all that land to Whitestown. I got to serve on the Boone County Redevelopment Commission in the early 2000s. And I was there when the Zionsville Town Council decided, no thanks, we don't want to annex any of that land that's west of us. That's not for us. We can't, that's not Zionsville. Zionsville is just this. They had no vision for where Zionsville could grow to and what it would mean. That opportunity lost us the federal and state dollars that would have come with having an overpass over a federal highway. We lost the opportunity to define what look and feel is for what Whitestown is today because of the lack of vision, because of leaders who just didn't want to mess with things like that. Well, I don't want us to continue to miss out on opportunities like the Carpenter Nature Preserve and other really terrific options that come to our community because there is a political agenda or just a lack of seeing what can be and what investments look like for communities that are growing and thriving. I have no interest in taking questions. Thank you.
All right, well, then I guess we'll have to make some statements that the mayor won't address. I'm curious as to what was said at the last meeting that was so offensive. The mayor appears to be leaving, so I can't really ask her for that. Annexation versus spending money when you don't know if you have the money is a really big and different subject. I would agree with the mayor. We should have annexed that land. That didn't cost us anything. What was asked of us at the last meeting was to spend $5.3 million that we don't know that we have. That's not a political agenda. That's pragmatism. That is spending within your means. That is not going over your budget. So am I off base here? Am I like that? I'm just flabbergasted by that.
And just for the benefit of those watching online, the mayor has left at this point. So it's great that she came in, did a grandstanding speech, and then decided to leave because quite frankly, this is what she's done for, it's pretty symbolic of what she's done for the last 2.5 years. She has her opinions, wants to state them, has no interest in hearing anything from us. That's unfortunate, but I'm glad she did it. Kind of shows how we're working together.
Perhaps we need to define what mayor and administration update on the agenda actually means, because that was certainly not an update.
So one of the things that she talked about was he pointed out was the problem with the annexation. That was a town council. And after that town council did that, and there was a lot of turmoil over that, that town council pretty much turned over. Right? And we have town councilors now who want to see this, and we're aligned with the mayor on this. We want to see the town grow and prosper and have the amenities. We need to just do it in a fiscally responsible manner. And I think that's what we're asking for. I guess I apologize to Jared if he took offense to some of the, I think Jared is one of the hardest working guys that I've ever met with a heart for the Parks Department. And I have really appreciated the things that he's done. Can you guys elucidate on
I think the reality is there was no official ask from the administration at the last town council meeting. And the reason there was no official ask was because that department head did not get that request in on time.
But he did give a speech, a lengthy one. And I think the frustration at the end was he gave a lengthy speech and there was no action to be taken.
There was no request.
Right.
So listen, we all get passionate about things and I understand that, but that's something.
Yeah.
All right. Up next will be town council update. Are there any updates from councilors?
The only update I had, have you heard from OpenGov? Last meeting, I asked if they would like to come present their side of what's going on. I haven't heard anything.
I have not heard from OpenGov.
I have been in contact with them as well as legal counsel for the town. So we're having those conversations. I'm happy to give the council an update. Obviously, currently negotiating sort of the transition of OpenGov to a potential additional vendor.
We are transitioning to something else.
Well, that is the current conversation. So
I'd ask the mayor, but she's not here.
No.
So the mayor has made mention of having an executive session for some update. Can we have an executive session on an update, Heather? Is that within state allowed rules?
an update on
OpenGov?
the current statute, the Indiana open door law says that it has to be an executive session for threatened or pending litigation. Right now, we don't have any pending litigation. We can also talk about contract disputes. So from that perspective, there's probably, ways in which we could have a conversation to update the council on OpenGov. I don't know if it's necessary at this time, but.
Okay. I sure would love an update from someone.
I would point out,
Can I just want to make
Yeah.
sure as well, I'm answering questions, but we're not handling
Yeah.
conversations.
Sure.
So the administration council is working on that.
in the second June meeting, we requested with the mayor present that we be included in the scheduling of public meetings for department heads to present on the 2022 budget or 2023 budget. Having not heard anything about a timeline or the budget from the administration, last Tuesday, I sent the mayor, her team, the town council, department heads, a memo that backs into the remaining days we have available to complete the budget for the town. This request aligns with state statutes and key filing dates. This request seeks to restore transparency to the budget process, as well as open dialogue in an effort to establish a budget that is both structurally and operationally balanced. We hope this will provide the town council and the public with department presentations to allow each one to share their goals and anticipated challenges for the 2023 budget. This will also allow the mayor and her administration the opportunity to inform the council of the mayor's key goals and objectives for the 2023 budget, walk through key financial assumptions, and provide an opportunity for Q&A with council members. In addition, our schedule provides for public hearings and a formal adoption process that allows the council additional time to deliberate on the mayor's proposed budget and ensure that all questions have been answered before the statutory deadlines. Lastly, this timeline seeks to allow the town council necessary time to determine if the budget is balanced and to understand key financial assumptions, and if necessary, produce and adopt an alternate budget. To date, I have not received a response from the administration or an alternate budget timeline. Our request begins with 10-minute budget request presentations from the following departments on the September 6th meeting: the police department with Chief Spears, the fire department with Chief Van Gorder, Department of Public Works with Mr. Lance, and the Department of Finance and Records with Kelly Adams. We are certainly hopeful that this dialogue and these presentations can move this budget process along efficiently and make sure that we are able to pass a budget together before the deadline. I just wanted to give you all an update on that.
Can I add one more thing? You sort of mentioned budget. I would encourage the public to go view the recent release State Board of Accounts audit of this town's finances that was requested by this council. It's a lengthy document, but it talks about a lot of concerns this council has had. We will summarize it for you here at some point, but it is certainly an interesting read if you want to know what's been going on here the last 2.5 years.
Anything else from councilors? Moving along, first item of old business is a consideration of a bond ordinance authorizing bonds. Zionsville TIF EDC, this is for the Adler Apartments. This is the final reading, ordinance 2022-14. I believe Mr. Price and Heather, or Mr. Price or Heather, James will be presenting. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. For the record, my name is Matt Price with an address of 10 West Market Street in Indianapolis, Indiana, representing the petitioner here this morning. I have previously provided for your packets, and then also have a duplicate copy of those same materials I've handed out for you, describing the project, which we call the Hy-V Adler Mixed Use Development. Just to remind everyone, this is property that is immediately east of the Lowe's store, just south of Oak Street, Whitestown Parkway. It's approximately 40 acres in total. The portion that we're dealing with this morning is the Adler apartment component. This is a development with a little over $28 million in assessed valuation, anticipated to pay $441,900 per year in property taxes. Our proposal is for a developer-backed bond or purchased bond, so the town would not be at risk as far as repayment of the bond, to pay for infrastructure costs associated with the development of this project, and also because of the way the properties kind of fit together, the Hy-V and the Adler piece, a certain component of the Adler infrastructure also serves the Hy-V piece in some important ways. Road improvements, water line extension, as well as some underground detention is all included in the Adler piece, but really benefits Hy-V tremendously in a coordinated fashion. I hadn't planned on focusing on this, but the dialogue we've had this morning does bring to mind kind of why this project is where it is today in Zionsville's corporate boundaries, which is Whitestown and Zionsville had competing annexations or overlapping annexations of the same territory back in 2012. And part of the settlement, if you will, of that annexation dispute was essentially an agreement by Whitestown to disannex certain parcels if they were so asked, and to reincorporate those areas into Zionsville. And this isn't the only parcel, but it's one of the main parcels that was involved in that swap, if you will. The owner of that property at the time is the same owner today, is John Demery, and he petitioned when asked to disannex the property from Whitestown. Whitestown followed the agreement and disannexed, and then then Zionsville took that property back, if you will, I think from our perspective here in Zionsville and what was then Eagle Township. And so the story, I think, is a very positive one in the sense that the vision for this area was that it would meaningfully add to Zionsville's tax base in an area that was in our historic economic development viewshed, if you will. And I think this is very much the culmination of that forethought by the counselors at the time. The other thing I would add, just so you can understand what else is happening in the kind of imminent nature of this project, is that the Hy-V grocery component is actually before the Zionsville Plan Commission tonight for what they anticipate to be their final development plan approval. So they're very much moving along with their component of the project. Happy to discuss any questions that you all may have. We've provided additional information regarding that we were asked to provide regarding impact fees and other economic impacts from the project that are summarized in the handout. Just to hit a couple of those, we anticipate $131,000 in park impact fees to be paid in association with the project. We also provided estimates relative to future income tax as well as food and beverage tax revenue from the overall project that are based on a fiscal report that we had commissioned as part of this overall proposal.
Matt, can you just sort of go through those numbers just so the public is aware of,
Sure,
of what those might be and kind of get a sense of what these projects can generate? And can you also touch a little bit on, I know this is not our area, but on how this would impact schools, any student that were to move into this apartment complex?
Absolutely. So on page 6 of your handout, it's what we labeled as total economic impact. For this tax parcel, It pays just a little over $1,000 a year in taxes today. And that's understandable given the fact it's unimproved property. The phase one component of the project, which is the Adler piece, would pay $441,900 a year in property taxes. That is net of those taxes, which are exempt from the TIF, meaning that there are certain taxes attributable to the school referendum that are not captured by the TIF, that are outside of that 441. Yes.
When
Council.
would that start? When would we see those funds?
I think we're anticipated to begin paying in 2025. Yeah, Mr. Berry is nodding.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just to clarify that, Matt, that is net of the TIF bond request, correct?
Correct. Got it. That's correct. Yeah. One of the things we had included, for example, it's most evident in, we had included in our materials some estimates relating to Hy-Vee and their future tax revenue. And one of the things that the town's financial advisor does when they calculate estimated revenue is they take the total tax revenue and then they exempt those portions of the tax rate that are not captured by the TIF. And so the number you see as far as anticipated incremental tax revenue for repayment of the bond is net of those figures. So the rest of that just flows through to that doesn't flow through, it just goes to the school corporation for retirement of its debt. We again estimate the total impact fees at $131,000. This project is not within the road impact fees study area for the town of Zionsville, so it doesn't pay road impact fees. That's in part because it fronts upon a portion of Oak Street, Whitestown Parkway that's not under Zionsville's jurisdiction. So as we were studying the other day, the outline of the study area for road impact fees actually just doesn't include these parcels, so it doesn't pay road impact fees. And then the utilities also are served by the town of Whitestown. So there's not fees directly paid to Zionsville for utilities because those utilities aren't being provided by the town. We estimated based on, we made some assumptions, of course, but assumptions based on household income for residents of the Adler. We estimated a total of $188,000 a year in income tax revenue to the county, which then Zionsville would receive its distributive share of. And then we also estimated from food and beverage tax revenue from the restaurants within the Hy-Vee grocery store of approximately $20,000 a year. We made some, I think, somewhat conservative estimates about projected sales. Hy-Vee has restaurants inside their groceries at various locations. We have a partnership, I think I mentioned last time, with Wahlburger is an example. And so that's where those revenues would come from. One other thing I'll mention, because it is one of the, I think, attractive aspects of this overall development is that within the allocation area itself, there is one project that is already paying property taxes, which is the Get Go convenience store facility that was approved a few years ago. And I included the tax bill for that property in your packet, but it generates a total of just over $70,000 a year in annual property taxes. Approximately $55,000 of that per year is captured in the TIF district. We were looking at existing fund balances. I think the town's fund balance today has just under 120,000 in that fund today. So it's already paying revenue as we speak.
Hey, man, you answered my last question that this was a net number on the total new property taxes net of the TIF, but the amortization sheet you gave me shows the town's share of that is only 44,000.
Right.
So I just want to be clear to counselors that where it says here that it's 441,900, that is before the 90-10 split. So the net to us is 44,100. Is the second phase not going to be a part of any, it's a part of the TIF, but is there not going to be any additional TIF bond asks? So in other words, will the net, when this is all done to us, to the town, until the bond is done, be about 300,000? Is that a fair statement?
No, the first part is in the sense that our revised ask is for the 90-10 split. So the 10% not being captured for the repayment of these bonds is a correct statement. Hy-Vee does anticipate coming back in and making their own request for their own infrastructure on site as part of phase 2 of the project, which would generate the additional assessed valuation. We'd have a similar discussion presumably at that time about what the appropriate allocations were.
Do we have a sense of what that ask may be? Like, in other words, is it going to be another 90-10 ask? Because I've heard in the past, there was a statement made that a lot of this infrastructure was being front loaded in this first ask because Hy-Vee was going to be able to use it. So I'm just a little cautious, concerned that there's going to be another 90-10 ask coming in. This $688,000 here to be paid is really only $68,000 to the town, because the most of it's getting soaked up by the bond repayment over a 20-year period of time.
Right. We've not gotten that far as the actual ask, including dollars. But I think, in fairness to your request, that would be something that we could discuss at that time. We're in kind of a unique situation in that, and I'll tell you what that is that when the town annexed this territory and Whitestown disannexed it, there was a project agreement, which is included in your packet, which contemplates the reimbursement of development expenses on this property from TIF. Now, it does not say, inconveniently, it does not, and that was not something I was involved in, or anyone in this room was involved in, but it does not say what the precise terms of that reimbursement are. And so what we've been working with council on is, what is the fair, reasonable, mutually beneficial terms that allow the town to reap the long-term reward from this development, while also reimbursing the developer for the contemplated development costs. And so that's what we believe we've arrived at with the 90-10 split on this project. That is not, and I think you can make clear, does not commit you to the same pledge on subsequent bond issue.
I'm sympathetic to the ask because I feel we inherited the ask in good faith. I just want that to be known, in the sense that I don't want this to be the model for every development that comes, even the Pittman property that we're talking about here next, the farm phase 1. It's sort of a similar structure where it's a big ask up front. I would not hope for a big ask on the second phase too, right? So, but I do know that we sort of inherited that. We had an agreement with Whitestown. The property owner was willing to work with the town to make this happen. So that certainly goes as a consideration into, my approval of this today.
So, Mr. Price, I understand that this is going towards road improvements, water line service, underground retention, and that's really not what we're talking about today. But I would, as a representative of that area, I would like to understand some of the road improvements that you're implying that will come with this, as well as I have another secondary question about the water line. Do we still have a compact fee with Whitestown? Was that integrated into this, or does that no longer exist for this property?
Yeah, so it does not. I hesitate to say with certainty what the plan is for the compact fee. What my understanding is that, and for everyone's knowledge on the council, is at one point Whitestown charged essentially a surcharge to serve areas that were outside of their corporate boundaries. In the last year and a half, 2 years, they have paused that surcharge. I don't think it's fair to say, or accurate, maybe is a better way to say it. I don't think it's accurate to say they've repealed it, but they've paused it in the sense that it's no longer being charged, to my knowledge, on existing projects served by Whitestown in Zionsville or contemplated future ones. So right now the expectation is that this development would not pay any type of a surcharge to Whitestown.
Thank you. And then the road improvements, is there something that's going to stand out with that? that road, I think is a tricky one, being on a curve, and I'm sure you've had engineering, your traffic study prove that as people take that turn, and there's 700 homes in that neighborhood right behind you, multiply that times 2. Some people have more cars than that. There's just going to be a lot of traffic on that street.
No, it's an excellent point. Yeah, so what the road improvements include, this is where they benefit both parcels, is the addition of turn lanes, which would facilitate the new traffic movements and work for the benefit of both properties. So that's exactly part of what is being financed up front.
So no roundabouts being contemplated or anything?
No,
To that extent?
nothing to that extent, although definitely the addition of the turn lanes, improved entrances to both properties internally. I believe also there's been a discussion of relocation and reconstruction of pedestrian sidewalks along the side of the street so that it's a walkable area as well. So basically, taking the kind of the core road that's there today and upgrading it to commercial standards so that when it is developed property, it functions properly for those traveling through and those wanting to visit either location.
So I'll do my best to attend tonight's meeting at the Planning Commission, but I know that some of my constituents are really worried about semi-travel down that path and safety of their children, et cetera. So I just want to encourage anybody that's listening to attend that meeting tonight as well, from either Royal Run or any other interested parties over there. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor.
Matt, are you guys gonna have a stoplight there between 2 and 3? Are you gonna put an additional stoplight?
I think that is a possibility. I'm looking at James Wilson, who's a representative of the company. Do you know offhand, Mr. Wilson?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
Can you repeat that, Matt, just so it's on record?
Yeah, I think he's saying that in connection with the Adler project itself, that there was not a warrant for a light, but perhaps with the additional commercial development on the High V piece, that could be a matter that's being considered.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that traffic for you, how that's gonna be managed. People turn left and right out of both Adler and Hy-Vee area. That's gonna be a lot of traffic right there on that curve. That's all I have.
Any other questions for Mr. Price? I would just point out, we talked about a little bit before this 90-10. I mean, the deal obviously that was inherited was 100-0, right? I mean, this is a modification, and I appreciate Mr. Price and his team's willingness to come to the table and work on this and communicate. That certainly means a lot. If there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Do we need to make a motion with the modified amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-14 with the following amendments. The maximum on the bond rate at 4%, maximum at 20 years, and a TIF pledge amendment from 100 to 0 to 90-10. Is that, you guys amenable to that? Is that?
We are.
Yeah.
Second.
Second by Counselor Traylor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ordinance 2022-14 is adopted on final reading and a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Thanks, Matt.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Up next is the consideration of bond ordinance authorizing bonds for the TIF EDC. This is for the farm phase 1. Heather, are you going to present on this, or Steve? I see you walking up.
Hi, everyone. Heather James Weiss Miller. So this is the same legal structure as the previous deal. It's another developer bought that TIF bond. And last time the developer team came up and gave you an entire presentation on the project itself. I know that there were requests that you had that I think you've now discussed all of that and been given the extra information. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I'm not sure what other presentation you'd like from us with regard to the project.
Heather, last meeting I had asked similar to what the last presentation just had of a breakdown of all the revenues that would be generated from this project, income tax, food and beverage, development fees, things like that. Is that available for us?
Sure.
Hello, good morning. For the record, my name is Steve Pittman, and I'm here representing the Pittman Skinnell team and the development of the farm in our first phase of our 400 apartments in our parking garage. And partly based on your question, Josh, we're asking that that we continue this discussion so we can provide more information to all of you, and we can disseminate that to you individually with further discussion. Or if it's so be that you would want to have a subcommittee to look at it, we can do that as well, whatever you recommend. But that would be our request this morning.
Is that okay for your timetable? I know that you guys are anxious to get started. And does that?
Yeah, I mean, our hope is that we could do this in a speedy, quick way. We go to the plan commission tonight for our development plan approval. So we're hoping to get through that tonight. Hoping to break ground this year on this project. But hopefully people could be available, and we would ask our council and Crow and Ice Miller to be available. I think maybe there was a little bit lost in the translation when Wayne left, and so hopefully we can pick up from that and fill in the gaps and get this thing moving.
I don't have any concerns with that. I'd like the additional information.
Yeah, I think we just probably as a council need to decide, would we rather have one-off meetings with the developers individually, or would we rather have a subcommittee of no more than 3 get together, meet, and communicate that way?
And you're talking about this information here, the total economic impact information. I think that should be presented right here, right now. You don't have it, I get it, but this is the forum. I'd rather have that be presented at a council meeting, just like Mr. Price was able to do.
I think it'll be presented. I think it's more just the discussion around kind of like what happened in the last one, the max bond rate, the max term for the bond amount, those kinds of things, and then have that presented to the whole council. So totally agree with you, Craig, on having it.
In full disclosure, I'm with you 100%, Craig. Like I don't think it's hard for me to envision bond presentations moving out of the council without that revenue estimate. So I'm with you there.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought we were speaking of.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair to them, if we can have a subcommittee of folks that can work with them, less than 4, that'd be great. I'd love to be on it just because it's in my district.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to volunteer to be on that? Would we have to, Heather, would we have to make a motion to do a subcommittee, or could we just say we're forming one?
I would go ahead and just indicate that you're going to form one and be clear about the timeline just for the public so they understand when Mr. Pittman and the team might be coming back.
I think it's reasonable to assume we would want this back at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So we would, I would envision, Steve, this committee working with you guys and having everything prepared for the next meeting so that you guys know, what this looks like too.
Okay.
Troy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being on the subcommittee as well, since I'm an at-large member, unless Vice President Burke wants to be on it. He's an at-large member as well.
He's not here, so.
Well, that's usually when you get assigned the committees.
I know. Are there any other counselors that would like to volunteer to be on that?
Are you going to go, President Plunkett?
Go ahead.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it as well. I've had many conversations with constituents that actually live in your neighborhood, Josh, that are really concerned about traffic as well in that area.
So we've got the subcommittee will be Melton, Councilor Garrett, Councilor Choi. And then obviously you guys can all communicate how to get together and get all that figured out. Would we then take a motion to continue the bond reading?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to continue in the next meeting.
And first by Councilor
Second.
Garrett, second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Thanks, Steve. Up next, new business item, a consideration of a tax abatement agreement and declare. I can't even speak. I can't even.
Declaratory.
I know. I can't even get it out. Declaratory resolution. This is for Prologis. Mr. Price, this is resolution 2022-13.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Again, Matt Price here on behalf of the Prologis Browning Joint Venture. This is a parcel at the County Road 550 and State Road 267. So over in Perry Township. You may recall that back at the June meeting, the council approved a rezoning to add 40 acres to the originally proposed development. And this adds additional projected assessed valuation of just over $46 million to the town tax base. And so what we're seeking to do is to amend the existing declaratory resolution to add this additional territory, add the additional AV under the same terms and conditions as the prior abatement. And got representatives of Prologis here with me this morning.
Matt, is this just simply, is this just as simple as the property or the opportunity got bigger and this is the exact same abatement schedule we had before?
Yeah.
It's just you had an opportunity to acquire the land next to it, build a bigger building, and we just need to modify it.
Yeah, actually, and you hit the nail on the head. The preference would have been to have done this up front. It's just that property wasn't available to add. When it became available, they did and feel like it's a more attractive parcel to the industry with that additional land, proves access, traffic circulation in the area. So they jumped at it when they had a chance to add that property and make it a better project overall.
And Prologis, again, has met with property owners in that surrounding area. They've held meetings. From what I understand, I don't know what the turnout was on that, but it seems like they've done some reaching out. This property will surround on two sides a single property owner. Is that correct? On that southeast corner of this development, there's a single property owner.
There's a if I'm following you, there's a property owner west of our site along County Road 550, but not it will not surround. Our property line stops east of that parcel by a few hundred feet, 300 or 400 feet. But Counselor, you are correct. We've had individual conversations with property owners in the vicinity, as well as a community meeting back when we were going through the rezonings, and touched upon a lot of topics, including drainage. Drainage has been a very significant issue in this vicinity, pre-existing any development there. And I think particularly properties to the east have experienced improvements in that area. And so they wanted to make sure that those improvements continued.
And that's through retention.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
I want to compliment you on that because there are I know a couple constituents out there that have been really adamant about drainage. They're on well and septic. Yep. And through this process with the property directly across from them, as well as comments with the connection with the county. County's come out, checked them, kind of helped with all that as well. So I want to thank County Ken Hedge for helping with that as well. But as we move forward, I think it's great that you guys reached out, had those public meetings with the well, I guess they weren't public, but invited the public to come to those meetings. And I'm all for this consideration as we vote. I don't know if you want a motion or you want to continue discussion.
Are there any other questions from councilors?
I just want to thank Prologis and Browning for increasing their investment in town, and hopefully this is a smooth process for them and they'll want to do more. So I'm certainly in favor.
Motion to approve resolution 2022-13.
Second.
First by Councilor Melton, second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Resolution 2022-13 is approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Up next would be a presentation by Z-Works. Vicki Hall, how are you? Good, thank you.
Just a sec to get hooked up here.
Do you have your laptop? That's not how it works. I can get mine. We're double prepared. It's just a matter of who brought up the laptop, right? Thank you.
For the town?
First. If you would, when you guys get started, just state your name and address for the record.
Oh, yes, we
Please.
can certainly do that.
Thank you.
I am Vicki Hall. I'm the Executive Director of Z-Works at 75 East Pine Street.
My name is Jeff Rayleigh, and I'm a board member of ZWorks.
As Jeff wraps up here, we can go ahead and kick it off if you would like. Again, we have introduced ourselves. Z-Works was established as a nonprofit in 2015 by Zionsville business leaders and entrepreneurs that had the vision for startups, entrepreneurs to have a positive impact on Zionsville, both economically and within our community. We are here this morning to demonstrate the impact of Z-Works is having within our community, share our outlook for the next phase of Z-Works, and request additional financial resources to accelerate entrepreneurial growth in Zionsville. Again, this is Jeff Rayleigh. He is a Z-Works board member, but he is also the founder and CEO of Groundwork, which is a very active Z-Works startup working out of there right now. Additionally, as you can see, our board is made up of the Zionsville entrepreneurial and community-minded business leaders in our town. Each board member brings their strength and guides Z-Works as we evolve. Over the past 7 years, Z-Works has been the hub to several startups. We consider our graduates to be those businesses that either exited via a purchase or larger investment, or those companies that grew beyond the space needs of Z-Works and needed their own office space to continue their growth. Many have stayed within the 46077 zip code. And what that is one of our top goals of Z-Works is to keep our graduates right here in Zionsville. Additionally, a recent report from Midwest Startups, which is presented by M25, which is an early stage Midwest venture capital firm located in downtown Indianapolis, showcased that Indianapolis has now moved up to number 3 in the Midwest startup world. Bloomington is 15 and West Lafayette is 16. I think Zionsville needs to be on that list. So that's what I'm looking for here. In addition to these startups, we have several entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and company teams that operate as and they use Z-Works as their home base. Our Z-Works businesses have contributed well over 150 jobs. Zionsville's per capita income averages $67,000. Therefore, that results in approximately an additional $10 million in salaries that Z-Works has created. The businesses of Z-Works has created. We recently conducted a poll of our members. We wrapped it up in July. See, I'm a talker and I'm a walker. And so thank you, Jeff. So we recently conducted a poll with our members to ask them when they're there, when they're at Z-Works, what do you do? 90% of them, of our members, they either dine, shop, or use a service within Zionsville when they are at Z-Works. Often they spend more than $25 each time they do that. Each month, we average 325 visits to Z-Works. That results in about $350,000 per year, just members alone, and your lunches, your coffees, and that's it. That number does not include our startups that have investors fly in for hotel stays, there's company meetings. That does not include members when they have their guests or clients that spend money. So likely we generate an additional $500,000 in additional revenue to our town for that. Through the years since our inception, the town of Zionsville has invested in Z-Works $95,000. This is our current mix of Z-Works startups and businesses, what they look like based on our July 2020 poll. We are evolving the Z-Works Launchpad with lessons learned from the pandemic. This is the current mix that we have, and we are actively planning Z-Works 2.0 to deepen our support of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and remote and hybrid workers are always welcomed.
So as the board has discussed what Z-Works 2.0 looks like, we've really kind of honed in what Z-Works is all about. Having been a consumer of the service myself, and now serving with the board, we've understood that Z-Works does really well is bring companies from that founding stage into the growth stage. What comes with that is more people and more of those elements to the ecosystem in Zionsville that both contributes to economic development, but also company development. This growth, these early growth companies encompasses these tech startups, but we've also realized that there's scalable local businesses that also fit within the footprint of Z-Works. These are local businesses, may not have a tech component, but they are growing from that 1 to 3 employee base to that larger employee base. The impact that these early growth companies have is that they spend money downtown in the village. They also provide a client base, a willing client base for professional service businesses, banking, accounting, marketing services. And lastly, they contribute to the ecosystem in Zionsville, local school programming. We've both presented at the Zionsville Community High School entrepreneurship group. And then also we bring in other entrepreneurs into the ecosystem. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit more to the vision for Z-Works 2.0 quickly. Talk about the space, the members in the community, the budget, and then the impact. So the space, we're looking for about 6,000, 7,000 square feet, 10 to 12 private offices, some space for collaboration and touchdown, and then also some conference rooms. Through the history of Z-Works, these kind of private spaces have been what has been lacking. That's consistently a topic of discussion around the space. So that is probably the biggest thing that we want to highlight, is that the new space that we're looking for has more office spaces. I think total right now we have 3 offices in the Pine Street location. So we want to really increase that with this additional location that we're looking for. Also, I should mention that the Pine Street location is planning to stay. We love that location downtown, right in the village, easily walkable. There's conference space there that's packed now that everybody's kind of back into the office and looking to collaborate a little bit more. So we would like to keep that location and add an additional location.
Jeff, how big is that Pine Street location for Vicky?
1,700 square feet.
Okay, so the members and community aspect of Z-Works 2.0, affordable private offices and flex space, that's kind of the main key functions. The goal is to increase that entrepreneur, small business owner to 75% of the membership, to foster those mastermind type connections. I have benefited from that, but know that if there were more private office spaces and more startups and early stage companies in that space, it would be even better. Additionally, since the pandemic, Z-Works maybe has fallen off on how we have provided programming to members. And so we want to continue to offer that in a more maybe robust and programmatic way. And then community events. This is something that was also done pre-pandemic, and just with some of the differences of how the space has evolved, we'd like to get back to that as well. And with this additional space, the flex space, we see opportunities to not only serve the community, or I'm sorry, serve the membership, but also serve the community. So quickly on the budget, the current annual budget is about $137,000 just with the Pine Street location alone. The projected 2.0 budget is about $275,000. Looking at some estimates on office space and private offices in the membership base that we believe we can get back up to, roughly the total revenue, we believe that it's just over $200,000. That's really where the $75,000 ask that we'll make here in a moment comes into play. Now, I will say that this is a well-run organization. There's money in the bank. We've demonstrated financial clarity and transparency and all that good stuff. So we do think that this is a feasible plan. I should also mention on this space, we are basing these numbers on some projected spaces that we've looked at in the past. So there's not one space necessarily we're looking at now. However, there are some options out there. We are open to more discussions along that. If there's additional information as we progress down this discussion, we'd be happy to share that. So the impact of ZWorks 2.0, obviously increased growth for these early growth companies. We believe that we can at least 3x that dining retail spend that we've shown in the past. Also formalize an ecosystem of support with support businesses that we know hang out around ZWorks. And then continue the momentum of the town. We believe that ZWorks has been an advocate for the way that the village has continued to thrive. There's businesses there. I eat lunch almost every single week with my dad at Rush on Main. You know, these are experiences that just happen because ZWorks is in the village. So we want to be a part of all of the projects in and around the village as that area continues to grow.
Obviously, the budget is a huge operation, and we understand that you are moving into the budgeting season. So we understand that it is very important to you, the town council and administration, to actively listen and be a part of the priorities for our community. ZWorks has demonstrated we are an important component, and we want to increase the upward trajectory with your partnership. As you know, as you move into the budgeting season, we are asking the town to invest $75,000 each year for the next 3 years to catapult ZWorks and the 2.0 entrepreneurial ecosystem. With this investment together, we will be an affordable hub for growing businesses, strengthen our tax base, encourage community spending, and create more jobs. We are absolutely happy to dive in deeper with you on this as you have questions, as you're planning. We understand that there are some unknowns for you guys, but we did want to be a strong consideration as you move forward and have ZWorks be a part of the Zionsville ecosystem. And on behalf of the ZWorks board and all of our members, we thank you for your time this morning. Any questions?
Questions for counselors?
Yeah, and Vicki, you do a great job. I mean, I've bumped into you at ZWorks. I've done some business stuff there. I mean, I appreciate your passion.
I do have passion for it.
No, I know you do. I love it. Is there thinking about even just a startup in general? It's a big jump, right? 95,000 over 7 years is $75,000 a year. Is there either a path to weaning yourself off of that? Because I just get worried that you're going to get into a space that's too big, or the membership. It's a great mission, right? But if are we then on the hook basically in perpetuity, because you'll have to come back and say, well, we're still $75,000 short, or is the space you're asking too much, or is the dollar you're charging too little? What's the right balance? And one other thing to throw at you, are there matching grants we can take advantage of that if we're kicking in 37.5, like the federal or state government can find the rest? Can you I know that was a lot to throw at you, but can you talk through that?
Did you want to touch on a couple of things?
I was just going to say, one of the things that's great about ZWorks is it is affordable for the membership. I think it's right now it's $80 or something like that, maybe a blended average from those that have been grandfathered in from others that, $80 a month. So incredibly affordable, with everything, inflation is here, right? And so speaking as a consumer, pay $600 a month for an office there. I told Vicky this too. I said, no, I don't want you to raise the price, but I think that can be bumped up a little bit. So this is based on current revenue projections and at a 75% occupancy. So we do think that there's some opportunities there to kind of get a little bit closer to meeting the budget on our own. However, the other aspect that we haven't been able to lean into a whole lot is at least in the last couple of years, are local sponsorships from those professional service agencies, and then also with an additional footprint. There's also rental income that is projected in here, but at a very modest amount. So, Josh, the answer to your question is yes. However, I do think that there's a good time frame here that town support really does make a huge difference for the organization. I don't know if you have anything.
So what happens in 2026? Is it another 75,000? Like, do you have projections or sort of?
150,000. I'm kidding. The idea is for us to be sustainable, self-sustaining through the town helping us get to the next level, and then work with corporate partnerships, and yes, possibly tap into further grants statewide. And then I think it also just demonstrates to our community and to other local businesses that the town is invested in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so therefore, as we work towards more corporate partnerships, I think that makes our ask a lot stronger.
I just want to make sure so we're talking the same thing, or like if the ask is 75,000 a year for 3 years, I understand that. I think that ask will be looked at more critically if you come back in 3 years and say, yeah, we haven't reached that. We still got to keep asking for money. So I just wanted to lay that out there that there's two asks, right? There's either an ask for this is sort of in perpetuity to support what's a good mission, right? Or this is an ask to get started, in which case it doesn't preclude you from a second ask, but a second ask may be looked at with more detail because you haven't got there.
Sure. Candidly, I look at the town support, and I think the board would agree, the town support is essentially subsidized rent for startups that grow, right? So that in perpetuity is a great mission for the town to be involved in. Now, I don't think that it should be considered to be off the table. ZWorks has done what it's done and done very well. I think what the purpose behind the 3-year ask is that the planning cycle for the organization has typically been very, very short. And so giving ourselves that runway, so to speak, of a 3-year time frame to get the feet underneath the organization in a more serious way, I think does give us that opportunity. However, I do not believe that that's an ask in perpetuity is something that the board would say, hey, we're going to be self-sustaining. I think we do want the town support on an ongoing basis. Right now, we've just looked at a 3-year time frame. Okay, so and that just helps because I just want to know in 3 years, if you thought you're self-sustaining, why weren't you? So 6,000 square feet without revealing necessarily details. I mean, I think one of the things that appeals to me about ZWorks is it is right downtown. As you talk about that food and beverage spend and whatnot that is happening in Zionsville, do you have a sense of where that 6,000 feet is? My only fear is if it's right on a border with Marion County or with Whitestown, that spend happens outside of the community, and I want to retain as much of that as possible.
Currently, the spaces that we have reviewed are all very close to Main Street.
Okay.
As Zionsville evolves, if there's opportunity moving forward with either developers or other businesses in Creekside, Pittman, the Hy-Vee, things like that, we can certainly explore those things. But again, that's why it is important for us right now to maintain the Pine Street location through the next 3 years.
Heather, I've got more of a budget question for you. If this was something that council wanted to support, because I know in the past we may have supported things that haven't existed in a budget that we controlled and can't force the mayor to write the check. If we do this as we're going through the budget process that President Plunkett outlined, if we make this a part of a council budget, can it be spent with council initiatives, or does it require administration approval?
No, if you were part of the council budget, I mean, you would just do it through either a budgeted line item or an appropriation.
Okay.
If the mayor's not cutting the check, I mean, that's a whole other problem, but I mean, if it's approved, it should be, provided to the individual for which it was approved, for the purpose it was approved.
Vicki, have you guys talked to the administration about support or resistance to this request, or is this the first conversation?
Excuse me, this is the first request. We have had several conversations with administration throughout the past couple of years, and we do apply through the community enrichment grant right now, and we will be submitting that for the August 30th deadline.
And have you always gotten what you've applied for?
We
The dollar amount?
in 2020, yes, because it was grandfathered in from a request from town council. And then in 2021, we did apply for it. We did not get requested amount. However, it was pushed. The additional ask was pushed through to the Community Development Corporation, which that additional ask was approved and funded through the Redevelopment Corporation.
Got it. I think it's important for this council to note that if it is something that we're supportive of, and I think it's a good mission, certainly would want to work with the administration, but if I think it's hard for you to budget 3 years out if you're being asked to come every year and not sure what you're going to get. And
Correct.
So this may be a
Correct.
way
That is-
for us to support that
Yes,
directly.
and hence the 3-year ask of this year.
So is there a vision from this board, not this board, but your board, excuse me, to have self-sustainability? You talked about corporate sponsors and those things, but I don't believe all of those are coming from the startups. I guess my request would be, my question is, have you talked to some of your members that had startups and they've become successful? You're an example. Congratulations. I know you're still utilizing ZWorks, but to get some of that funding from those that you cultivated when they're, real young, you helped them as they started young, old, but the business was young. Is that something your board is doing, is considering finding those businesses that you helped thrive and requesting some of that support from them? I mean, that's just, to me, that makes like complete sense, is like, go to the people that you helped and say, hey, do you want to help fund ZWorks as we move forward into the future? I like self-sustainability. I know it's not always possible, especially what you're trying to do is keep the price down for these office spaces. But we've seen office space do some crazy things here in the last 3 years, and there's probably a lot available. I'm not sure on that, but I know there was. I know there are several large businesses here in Indianapolis that are, done with office space. Everybody can work from home. My question is, can you get them to help sponsor some of that? Are you chasing those businesses that you've helped to help fund future fund ZWorks into the future, or are you relying solely on your rents, your
You can, and then,
town?
Paul, do you wanna-
While Paul's making his way up here, at the beginning of ZWorks, there was a group of people, founding members. So that model has existed, and it's a great suggestion, Craig, to go back to those folks. And it's a donation, 501c3 nonprofit. So that's a great suggestion. We hadn't necessarily talked about that. The businesses that we traditionally have targeted for sponsorship are more so financial institutions, it's professional service types of businesses. But it's a great suggestion.
Yeah, maybe in the membership, you just have a clause in there that says, we expect you to come support us once you're a multi-million-dollar business.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they do it or not, that's really up to the business choice. But if it's in there, you can kind of rely on it to be like, hey, we helped you. We need your help. and we want to continue to help others. And I think what that will create is this opportunity for those businesses that have done well to come back and see these startups and say, hey, actually, I like these guys. I want them. I want to capture them and buy their business or what have you. But I could see it as a great opportunity for both the person donating money to ZWorks as well as the opportunity for somebody's small business. It's just an idea still in its infancy to get bought up. And again, I think those are the people that you helped. Now we need their help. And I like self-sustainability as opposed to coming to the town and spending town dollars, but I do see value. I'm a small business owner. I own several businesses, and it's hard. It's hard when you don't have money or space or affordability. And Zionsville has an affordability problem for contractors, for small businesses. And I really appreciate, and this is a passion thing for me. I'm willing to write a check, but the thing is, it's not my money. It's the whole town's money. So
Sure.
the gentleman behind you.
Thank you. Paul Dreyer, local resident, 535 West Pine Street. I'm the chairman of the board and one of the early founding members of ZWorks. First, to answer Councilman Josh's question, the original plan for ZWorks 2.0 was sustainability, self-sustainability. We were basing it on two separate facilities that are here in the village within walking distance and short walking distance to the village itself. We needed to support and have the initial funding to get us over the hump. We would clear out our bank account, and then we'd have to rely on filling those offices. But at 12 offices, we are self-sustainable. So to answer your question, Josh, yes, that would be the first answer. But there would be a future ask, because somewhere along the line, the Gateway project is going to take off, and there's going to be a bigger opportunity to pull in more entrepreneurs into a bigger space. So while I can say that we will be self-sustainable and not need the 75,000 after 3 years, what I would say is that in everybody's interest in this community, if we're successful there, let us grow. We're successful the first time, let us grow. Councilman Melton, great comment, great idea. You're absolutely right. Anybody that's grown up out of ZWorks and are now here and growing the town, they should give back, because you can talk to the founder of Clear Software, and he will readily say immediately that if it were not for ZWorks, he would not have grown his company and had the employees and eventually sold to Microsoft. So yeah, I agree with that. It's a great idea, and we will promote that. Absolutely, 100%. So thank you. That's all I wanted.
Vicky, if you think about these personal offices, is there any restriction on them being entrepreneurs versus individual professionals? Because if we're subsidizing, no offense to those professions, but I don't want to subsidize a realtor's office or a lawyer's office.
Correct.
That won't generate jobs.
Correct. In keeping with our nonprofit mission as a 501c3, yes, the offices will be reserved for entrepreneurs or growing and scalable businesses, whether they start out as one and they're hoping to grow to 3 to 5 to 10 up to 25, and they take over 3 private offices, but it is growing and scaling. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tech startup, but the idea is growing and scaling. And Jeff and the rest of the board, we've even discussed a simple application process moving forward to also help be able to communicate back to you how you are supporting new businesses for us. But correct, they will not be for realtors, lawyers, hairstylists, photographers, things like that. Those types of businesses will absolutely be able to utilize ZWorks in our collaborative areas, meeting rooms, and be a member.
Jeff, and I'm sorry, so many questions.
No, I love it. This is great.
From a board perspective, and sort of on Craig's comment, has there ever been any talk about ZWorks taking some sort of very small minority stake in a company that is incubating at ZWorks to kind of, if there is that event that happens, turns into that funding source for, if we're subsidizing offices, if we're sort of creating this environment that's subsidized by the town as it gets to self-sustaining? Is that anything that's been explored, or does that get too complicated?
I think It has been discussed. I think there's an interest in that. From my personal understanding of how that would logistically and legally and all the other things, probably pretty messy. We haven't gone there. Doesn't necessarily tie directly with the tasks at hand right now. However, it has been discussed. Certainly more thinking to do on that. It has been discussed.
Got it. And then last question, I promise. Is there enough demand for this additional space? You were at 2 spaces, you're down to 1. Cohatch has since opened. Do you feel there's enough demand to justify the growth?
We do, yes. I regularly field questions for private offices or additional meeting rooms, privacy booths. And they are looking for affordable space to be able to grow their business.
I promise that's it.
So I have more or less suggestions, but just a thought. So if we were to, as a council, say, yeah, we want to make this 3-year commitment, we'd essentially be banking on the next council honoring that last year's commitment. So while we say, yeah, in theory, we would, so just a thought. We've got, this council will make the budget for 23 and 24. So my thought is that if this is going to be an ongoing ask, and I am very supportive of Z-Works, I think it's done amazing things in its short life so far, and look forward to seeing what it does in the future. But if this is going to be an ongoing ask, you might consider getting on the council's agenda around this time in 2024. That way it'll be the new council, and you could perhaps at that point start going in 4-year asks if you're going to be doing this on an ongoing basis, and get in that cycle so that you're always talking to the council that can commit for that following 4 years. And if you were to do that, my suggestion would be to look at the businesses that have graduated from Z-Works and are paying taxes in town, the ones that stay in town, and using their tax revenue as further justification for what Z-Works does. Because I think Z-Works does far more than what you showed as the benefit, because that's just of your current members and what they spend. But I think if you could show, hey, here's all the businesses that have come from Z-Works and what they're contributing to the town because they started here, that would be an added benefit. But as I said, I'm fully supportive of supporting Z-Works, given the short history, but very good history with the town.
Along that line with kind of encumbering the next 3 years, potentially a new counselor or new council, perhaps we can, if we decide it's something we wanted to do, perhaps we could use ARPA money.
Yeah,
and,
correct.
And I know the chamber has talked about this before, and certainly, something that we've heard and considered. And I think that as we start to develop an ARPA plan, this is good to hear what's needed. I do think regardless of how we do it, it has to come from this council. I mean, you guys may or may not recall, August 1st and August 5th, or August 1st and August 14th of 2020, I sent a request to the administration for $50,000 a year for Z-Works and was told that pet projects would not be approved. So if we're going to do it, and you can find that in the FOIA request. But if we're going to do it, I think it's got to be something that's going to come from us.
Yeah, and I was just going to note as well, in addition to ARPA, kind of picking up on Councilor Trailer, your comment. I mean, we really don't want to be in the position of encumbering a future council. We typically have looked at annual budgets because you don't know what the tax revenue is going to be, what priorities are going to face the town at any, given year. So I always, kind of caution away from that, but looking at other alternatives or just a strategic commitment, where you're really helping, on a plan, I think is appropriate.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out to the public that I think this conversation is only happening because it is a nonprofit organization. If you were a for-profit asking for for us to subsidize this, it would probably wouldn't be a conversation we'd even entertain.
So I think I used to be a early founding member as well at ZWorks and have more or less graduated. I don't know what we would term me, but
You're always a member.
thank you. Very supportive of ZWorks and what you all have done. So can you give me a comparison to how this would compare to something like Launch Fishers, which was a city initiative and funded by the city? Do you know how much of a delta or a loss they take on it or a profit for Fishers? I know that it was a huge investment on the city of Fishers when it first launched, and they're a little older than ZWorks. Do they continue to receive support from the city? Are they separate from the city now, or are they still a city project?
It is my understanding that they are still very much supported by the city. They do not pay any rent on their building. It is a city-owned building, as is the mill in Bloomington, and they both run as nonprofits as well. So that obviously helps with a large budget item there. I will find out more. I'm actually going to the 10-year Launch Fisher celebration on Thursday. And so I would be happy to report back my findings of how they continue to be funded. I know they continue to expand, and they work closely with Mayor Fadness regularly.
Yeah, and I know that Launch Fishers has been incredibly successful for the city of Fishers and getting businesses to stay in that area as well. So that brings me to my other question. I know when I used to be a member of ZWorks that one of the questions was whether or not Zionsville itself had enough office space for the graduates of ZWorks, appropriate and enough office space. What are they finding? Are they staying in town, or because of a lack of appropriate office space, are they moving to Carmel or Whitestown or somewhere else?
Excuse me. It depends if we can, do you mind to go back to that first, the startup? Some of the key ones, such as 120 Water, Clear, now Microsoft is still currently in Zionsville. Some of our other startups, Aerofy is now, they are actually on Main Street. Intelligent Living has actually taken over the previous ZWorks location on Cedar Street as well. And they have created a showroom. So rather than take their home automation potential customers to homes such as Chatham Taps, Bridgewater, they're coming right here to Main Street. So that's a huge one. Mix It Out is still here. A lot of these companies that have graduated, they do have a headquarters, if you will, because of how people are working. They may not need a huge office. So again, a lot of times they'll still end up using ZWorks as a meeting space. But yes, as 120 did want to look for office space, Cloud Digital is currently looking for office space in Creekside, things like that. There would be a need for some of the larger companies to potentially have greater needs.
Is this, I don't know what's going on with the old Lids building. Is that
2001 Group owns that.
Okay, is that something that ZWorks could have a conversation with about possibly having office space for their graduates?
Pre-pandemic, we started those conversations like literally, I think March 12th.
Okay.
And that changed. So yes, we would absolutely be open to that and discuss that.
I think that's one of the key parts is that ZWorks, I mean, an organization like ZWorks that benefits the community is not just unique to our town, and other towns have found benefit in it. In those cases, it's the city that significantly supports it, started it and supports it. And it would be probably beneficial for us, since we weren't the ones that started ZWorks as a town, but to follow in line with cities like Fishers and Bloomington in making sure that we invest in those companies that then create benefit to the town.
I think something that she mentioned, Vicky mentioned, with Fishers owns the building. I mean, that's a huge deal. That's right there. And what I like about that, I like ownership personally. If the town owns it, the town owns that asset. The town has value there. If they bring in somebody like Z-Works and Z-Works kind of operates it, leases it out, whatever. I mean, I think that's something that it's going through my mind right now. I'm not saying I'm committing to anything like that, but absolutely, but we also got to consider Fishers is a behemoth. Now we're a huge town, largest town in the state, if I recall. But there's just different things going on. We are a residential, we're just a different beast in our own right. And what town within parks, right? Within a park. So, what great ideas. Thank you for your presentation. And I will definitely be looking into kind of you mentioned Bloomington. Is that another?
Correct. It's called the Mill
Mill,
in
okay.
Bloomington, and it is a repurposed old mill. It is 19,000 square feet.
Wow. So yeah,
And so
absolutely.
they are incubating a lot in there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the great work.
So to your point, Councilor Melton, and you pointed out that we're a residential community. Wouldn't this be part of our strategic initiative for the future to invest in something that then grows our commercial base? And should we then think about what this looks like going forward in, I don't know, I'll toss out whether or not we should invest in space that we own, that then we provide for the growth of companies in Z-Works. So I'm just tossing it out there.
I think we have to be careful, as not everybody's an entrepreneur in the town of Zionsville. So they're paying taxes, and we just got to be careful we can't get everybody on board with one thing. That's just nearly impossible. But I think it is something, it is our duty to offer our constituents opportunities, whether it be through a building and use such as Z-Works, a community center such as the current administration has had interest in. We have to consider those things. So I would say it's definitely a part of our initiative. We have specific locations through our town as well where we do focus on. I think we own quite a bit of land still right down the street here. I know Perry Township with its farm ground and industrial sites. There's a lot going on out there. So yeah, I think it should be. As a contractor here in Zionsville, I know it's been very difficult to find a location that a contractor can start up his small business or her business and grow in the town of Zionsville without going to Whitestown or Indianapolis to rent storage space. That's a whole nother conversation, but I know I have had conversations with every counselor up here about potentially a flex space for the trades or some other kind of business, but that's something that we'll touch on later. But I just wanted I believe that is our responsibility as we move into the future.
Vicki, I'd be very interested if you could find out more information about Launch Fishers and Mills and the impact they've had to their communities and in terms of growth of businesses in that area.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share that with you guys.
And I had one question before this all started. Now the onion keeps getting pulled. So also as a founding member, big fan of Z-Works, I would like to see, before we would approve, I'd like to see how many people how many people do you have right now that paying $80 a month? Not even $80. How many members do you have?
Currently, right now, we range anywhere between 125 to 135, just simply because you always have I need it for the summer, and then, so give or take.
What was the pre-pandemic membership?
We hovered around 175 to 190.
Okay. So that answers a lot of these next questions. You mentioned that if you did get the $75,000 per year, that you would keep the Pine Street location for 3 years?
Correct, yes.
And what's your lease agreement on that property?
The amount that we spend or our
No, is
current
it-
lease agreement,
The lease agreement,
I just re-up for another 2 years.
2 years. Okay, that's, okay. And then, so membership has gone down. So if membership has gone down, are you wanting this additional money to grow so you can add more members
Yes. we
as a
would-
competitive advantage?
Competitive advantage and also just allow more of that flex space to meet more members' needs.
Okay,
And the requests that they have when they do want to become members. And additionally, I think the additional space, flex space, private offices, that allows us to recruit new entrepreneurs to come into town, work with you and town administration to work with you guys as you guys are encouraging businesses to come to Zionsville.
so that would be my next question before we would vote on something like this. I would like to see, I guess, as a business person, you're going from 175 to 190 and now you have less people, you now have Cohatch. So what is your competitive advantage to grow yours? I think I know what the competitive advantage is, but I'd love to know what your competitive advantage is against somebody like Cohatch if your membership has gone down.
The competitive advantage is we are offering an economical hub for them to be and to grow and to graduate out of. Some of our ZWorks startups actually graduated to Cohatch, and that is a win-win for everyone.
Okay, that's good. Back to just something off topic here, but I would assume moving to Perry Township would lose the competitive advantage of being accessible to the businesses in downtown Zionsville.
Yeah, I would say in addition to the competitive advantage, I think just like the way that the membership as a whole wants to work and be close to downtown. And, we truly do want to provide that proximity to the local dining and just adds to the kind of the whole ecosystem of ZWorks as being in town.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yes.
kind of wondering if. we
Part of
went down
that July
path.
2022 poll that we took was, for most of our members, it was very important that we remained in the proximity of the village.
Yeah, just a quick touch on that. I think my comment was leading towards these businesses growing and then needing a place to stay within Zionsville
Yes.
to keep that tax.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay,
and
that
then
makes
could
more
be-
sense.
Yeah, that would,
All right, so you mentioned that you're trying to get more corporate sponsors. Is that correct? Did I hear you say that?
correct, corporate partnerships. And
So-
so we would want to actively work with them to work with our members and our growing companies.
Do you have a pipeline for that? Do we know who these
When-
companies are? Is that something you can share with us?
Sure, as ZWorks got going and
Yeah.
things like that, we have accounting, banking, things like that. During the pandemic and as we work our way out of that, we are filling the pipeline back. Of course, we're going to go back to some of our original asks, but we will be filling the pipeline with other local partnerships.
Yeah, I would like to see what corporate investments were before the pandemic and now, when you present again, if you guys don't mind. Because I have no idea. Is it easier just to walk in here and ask for $75,000 a year? Or is it easier to go work with the Chamber of Commerce and try to drum up more money that way?
Well, I think there's also a strategic advantage to having, multiple players involved, right? So
You
support
don't
from
put
the
all
town,
your eggs in one basket. That makes
right?
sense.
Town of Zionsville, support from the town of Zionsville is a really meaningful thing. So we would want to, kind of do all.
Yeah.
Traditionally, the kind of corporate sponsorships or, partnerships have been, this is our accounting sponsor, this is our, legal, so there's some buckets there. That's kind of how it's been structured. We have talked about possibly revisiting that a little bit, but in general, I would also say that the asks have been smaller than I think we can, demand, especially with a space that gives us a little bit more breadth and impact in the community.
Yeah, I think that when you guys come back, I'd love to see the revenue stream, where the most it's coming from. Is it coming from corporate? Sponsorship? Is it coming from, obviously you get $80 a month with,
Sure.
125, 135 members.
As ZWorks got started, it did have the majority of the revenue to get going was through corporate partnerships. Each year that we were open, that decreased, and a lot of the corporate partnerships that we did have were in-kind services. So it didn't help on a revenue model, but it certainly helped on the expense end.
I just remember that when this first started, there was so much public backing, like everybody was so excited about everything doing.
Right.
Have we fizzled out? How do we help you? How do we, even at our end, is there some marketing we can do, something we can
Yep.
help? So that's just something I was thinking.
And that's part of the presentation today as well, is to
Yeah.
reignite this.
Yes, yeah, that's the key.
To
word.
absolutely reignite the ZWorks vision and its mission and what we are wanting to do. And we believe that with the additional town backing, that continues to reignite the corporate sponsors as well, because
Okay.
they get excited about it again too.
All right, so my last question is probably for Heather. So let's say we approve the $75,000 a year. Is this something the administration can say, yep, we're not paying it?
I think we would have to consider putting it in the council budget. I don't think there's a way they can't pay it if it's part of the approved budget, if you have a specific line item.
Well, we approved Boone EDC years ago and it got cut out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think we're trying to
What?
tighten that up.
That is true.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
okay.
Yeah.
That was 50
We had
grand.
issues with
just so you know.
ZYSA too, right? But that got paid, I believe, right? ZYSA,
Yeah, that got-
separate.
Yeah, they got paid. I just
Okay.
want everybody to understand that my first year here, I was on the Boone EDC and out of nowhere, the 50 grand was just taken away. And it was approved in the budget. So I guess that's my worry, is for you guys going forward. So that answers that. Sorry for taking so much time, but this is near and dear to my heart as well, and I want to make sure it's successful. Okay, so there was one other piece that I had for Vicky. I'll probably have to think about it. Does this give you another kind of enough bullet points to see, like when you come back and present, to kind of give us some more dollars and cents to it? And,
Yes,
and where we-
absolutely. And we can reach out to you guys if we
Yeah.
have follow-up questions for the next presentation.
Yeah. So, anything we can do, especially from a tax percentage, tax reasoning to it. I think that's it. So, yeah, I guess that's it for me, but anything you guys need help from us, but at the end of the day, I'd like to see some of these questions answered so we can know where we're starting from.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. We appreciate your time and interest and all your good questions.
Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you.
Next is other matters. Are there any other matters from counselors?
No.
You said no?
No.
Well, that's interesting. Otherwise, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well, I guess I will make a motion then to adjourn.
Yes, second.
Second by Counselor Culp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion to adjourn is approved. 6 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 6th, 2022 at 7 PM in the Zionsville Town Hall Council Chambers. Final notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana open door law. Thanks so much.